Welcome to the Tippie Leads podcast, stories from the University of Iowa's Tippie College of Business that will change the way you work and lead. I'm your host, Nick Westergaard. I teach at Tippie and lead our Story Lab program. Each season of Tippie Leads, we focus on a grand challenge in today's changing world of work. This season, we're looking at how you can be the CEO of your life. Previously, we talked about building habits that stick. But habits will only get you so far if you're running on empty. So how do you actually manage everything that's competing for your time and energy without burning out? Luckily, Beth Livingston is here to help explain this to us. Beth is the Ralph L. Sheets Associate Professor in Industrial Relations here at Tippie, and her research on gender, work, and family has been featured in the New York Times, NPR, and the Harvard Business Review. She's also the co-author of Shared Sisterhood, one of Forbes' top 10 business books of 2022. She knows a thing or two about what it means to manage a full life and how to do it well. After that, we'll hear from Tippie student Jack Cantorna, who shares a story about a traumatic event in his life that led him from imbalance to balance. And, as always, we'll bring it all together with a final Tip E just for you. Ready? Let's get started. And as we're here talking about balance, Beth, I know among your many roles is you're also a theater mom.
Yes, I am indeed a proud theater mom. I am.
So it only seems fitting because even you who is talking about balance, we are all juggling more than ever. And what was someone that spends so much time with this? What do you think of when someone says, "I'm really struggling with balance"?
I think we have spent a long time in this country with the word balance as part of our sort of national vernacular. I think we've been talking about it for 30 some odd years. It's, could we be more balanced? Do we have balance? Is balance attainable? And I think talking about balance sometimes makes us even more stressed because we have not achieved balance. It becomes this elusive goal that we're all striving to achieve. And one of the things that I've been really interested in my career is how we can sort of deconstruct the idea of balance and figure out what it means individually for particular people in particular phases of their life.
So in deconstructing balance, I suppose do I need to answer the first question of the phase and stage that I'm at, or is there one definition that rules them all?
So one of the challenges with the word balance is there is not necessarily one definition that rules them all, which is a very complex situation to deal with when you're a researcher who thrives on things being clearly defined and measurable. However, what I will say is that I think one of the going popular definitions of what it means to be balanced is that the priorities in our life are situated in such a way that we're able to invest energy where we want to invest energy in a way that makes us feel fulfilled and satisfied with our lives. But you can see with a definition like that, how different it is across each individual person. Now, Nick, we talk a lot, you and I, but we are in different life stages. We have different goals in our lives, different priorities, and thus our conceptions of balance will be wildly different. Maybe not wildly, we're similar in a lot of ways, but will be different because of those experiences we've had in our life, which makes it hard for us to give one prescriptive solution to everybody on how they can achieve this elusive balance in their lives.
So how does it we hear the metaphor of it being almost like a portfolio that we can balance. Is that type of thinking helpful or maybe not the best angle?
I don't like that just because for me, the word balance conjures this idea of I'm in yoga and trying to stand on one foot for too long. And eventually I'm going to fall down. I was a dancer growing up. I still take adult dance classes now because It's part of my own conception of my priorities in my life and helps me feel fulfilled. However, when we're trying to do, okay, let's balance like a pirouette, and I'm falling out of it, well, then I just feel bad about myself, right? And I think many of us are falling out of our balanced pirouettes at all times and feeling like then we've somehow fallen short of our ideal. We're not only feeling like we're not fulfilled in our life, we're feeling guilty that there's this elusive balance and we haven't achieved it and we've got it on our goal list, and it becomes yet one more thing that we can't achieve, yet one more thing that we don't have in our lives. And it also, the idea of balance conjures an idea of a state of being that we're striving to achieve, as opposed to something we actively engage in on a regular basis. And so I like to reframe it a little bit. Instead of saying balance in my work and my non-work lives and all the things I love, I like to say I'm managing those things. How do you manage all the priorities in your life instead of how do you balance them? Because that implies that I have an active role in shaping the way my priorities manifest in my life.
That's, I'm think language is powerful, and I think having the right label, the right framing there is helpful because, like you were saying, with balance, I mean, in a way, a balance is dependent on like the laws of gravity. Where you talk about management, and you have some more agency and control over it. But it's still easy to get overwhelmed. So as the manager or CEO of your life, see what I did there with our
I love it.
theme
A
of
master
this.
of language, Nick. I love it.
But if it's overwhelming, how do you manage what's on deck, or how do you what process can you apply to that?
I think the first thing that I often recommend people do is take a really good inventory of where they currently are in their life. If the idea of being balanced, if we were going to take it as that word, is about thinking about our priorities and the way we're managing our shifting priorities throughout our lives to achieve fulfillment, then we need to know what those priorities are. We need to be really honest with ourselves about what our priorities are. And I think a lot of people aren't exactly honest with themselves about the things they prioritize in their lives, the things they spend time on, the things they spend energy on. And taking inventory of that is the place that I recommend people start. What are the things you're doing every day? What are the things you wish you were doing every day? And what do you want to get out of those activities? Are you spending time with your children? Are you spending time with your spouse? Are you engaging in hobbies? Are you engaging in work? Or are you continuing education? What are the things you're spending your time on? And how do you wish that the time you were spending and the energy you're investing was different? Be honest with yourself. If you're spending, 4 hours a day scrolling TikTok, like be honest with yourself, because maybe that is fulfilling to you and that's okay. So you shouldn't feel guilty about that because it's meeting a priority that you have. Sometimes it's not, though. And those are the moments where we say, okay, how do we shift our behaviors to manage our priorities in a way? And that leads us to a different set of questions we ask ourselves. But I always start with, what are your priorities and how is that reflected in the way you're spending your time and energy?
I love that. And that can be, writing down at the end of the day. It can be something in your notes app.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got that logged. You mentioned like another set of questions. What's the overlay that you use to analyze your time spent?
We use when I'm teaching my students and engaging in this, general education and coaching, I often like to say, all right, let's look at what's important to us, what is helping us achieve particular goals and desires in our life, and what is urgent or demanding of our time, right? Things that you need to do right now, right now, right now. Like a child is yelling at you from the bathroom or whatever those things are. You get a phone call and, your boss needs you to reply to something immediately. What's urgent in your life? And oftentimes the things we value most are not necessarily urgent. They're those long-term goals we have for the things that we want to be able to do. I want to be a better leader, or I want to tell better stories, or I want to be a better dancer, or whatever those things are that aren't urgent and demanding on your time right now, but they do require a degree of proactivity. And so what we like to try to do is shift our attention away from always being reactive to interruptions in our life towards being proactive to the things that we value and scheduling time in our schedules for those things. Interruptions are always going to happen. Unfortunately, you're never going to avoid the phone call from school or the, random frantic email from a client. Like those things are going to happen regardless. So if you're just sitting around waiting for the inevitable interruption, you're leaving all this time on the table to do things that will get you closer to the priorities you value and that will bring you fulfillment. And so I like to try to shift our attention away from being reactive to being proactive in the things that we value in our lives. I also think as we're doing that, figuring out how time management can help us. I think one of my favorite things to do is tell people that, yes, we do have research that time management tools help us. And I know that sounds really annoying because you'd like to be able to say, well, time management doesn't really work. I don't need to make those lists. I don't need to, I'm really sorry, but making lists is actually helpful for many of us on average to make sure that we achieve the goals we set out to do. But that does not mean that there's one right way to make a list. So friends, if your favorite way is in your notes app, that works. If it's your favorite way is to go out and buy beautiful notebooks with great colored pens every 6 months and work those things out, that's also great. I think the whole idea is to make sure that your to-do list is situated in a way that helps you to get closer to that state of fulfillment that you like and those priorities we identified, and that focus on things that require more proactivity, things that are more long-term in your life. And that you select a time domain that reflects where you are in your life. When I was younger and I didn't have children and I didn't have the responsibilities in my job that I have now, I could make a daily to-do list and I could get through a lot of my daily to-do list. Why? Because I didn't have a lot of interruptions that were interrupting me and keeping me from those things that were really important. If I made a daily to-do list where I said I needed to get through all of these things every day to feel fulfilled, I would fall short almost every single day. And that would make me not feel very good about myself. I would not be celebrating very many wins. So I like to think of my to-do list as more weekly to-do list or sometimes a monthly to-do list. I have different ones of saying, okay, if I get to the end of the month and I've completed these things, it's a good month. It's a good month and I'm going to celebrate those things. And I am very careful about the things that make it on that monthly to-do list because those are the things that are most important to me and closest to my priorities.
I love that. And you're speaking to an advanced list maker here. And
speaking my language. I love it.
But also with like the overwhelm, because it can get a list maker in trouble too, because sometimes I'll pull things from the other days and you're kind of just like never done. There's always something you could just keep filling the time in. So my new system is some colored sticky notes here, and some of those macro tasks I can like move into next week if they're not happening, and I still know they're there. They're still on my list, but it's maybe not one that needs to be done.
Well, you've gone through what there's a really great approach to time management that talks about the fact that you don't have enough time to get everything done. Lists are great, but yes, things are going to pop up. And so she talks about there being 4 Ds, okay, to navigating this. And the first is find out if there are tasks you can delay. Be honest with yourself. Some things, yes, I can delay till next week and it's still okay, right? And it's still fine. Some things, no, I can't do that, but that's okay. Some things I can delay. Sometimes there are things in our life that we can delegate to other people that even though we think we're the best ones to do it, sometimes there are people who would thrive if they had an opportunity to try something new or, which is even more often the case, they can do it good enough. You may do it better, but they can do it good enough. Right? And I think that's a really hard thing for people to recognize and understand. You can delay things. You can delegate things. You also can delete them off of your to-do list because last week when you wrote them, you might have thought it was important. And then you realize that actually it's okay if I don't work out. That's okay. I'm going to be all right. I can take that off my to-do list and not feel guilty about it at all. Like I'm going to be okay to do that. And I think the the last one that she notes is something called diminish. And I love that one because I'm a perfectionist at heart, Nick. Like, I want to give my 110% every single time I do something, like, because I know I can. I know I can do it, right? In my brain, if everything aligns, if the stars align, boy, I can give you 120% and it's going to be brilliant, right? But we're grown people in our lives, and we know that the stars don't always align in a way for me to be able to give 120%. And so sometimes you can look at your list and be like, my 80% is okay for this. This doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to get done.
Yeah.
I actually engage in one of the things on my list is often to exercise. I think many of us in our age were like, yeah, we should exercise more. It's great. And I used to be at a point where if I couldn't be the perfect workout, then why do it? Like, if I can't go do that full workout, then it's just not worth doing anything. Well, that's a ridiculous mindset. And so I've adapted this diminish where I'm like, 5 minutes is more than nothing. 10 minutes is more than nothing. It's okay so long as I move. And that diminish approach has helped my to-do list immensely, because instead of being like, well, where am I going to find a 2-hour block to exercise or a 1-hour block to exercise? It's, oh, I can fit 5 minutes in here and I can do some things here. And I've done the thing on my list. I've exercised, I've moved my body, because thinking about what my priorities actually are, which is to get healthier, to move my body more. It's not be the perfect exerciser, right? And so I think sometimes diminishing those things on our list is important, particularly for those of us who are more perfectionistic at heart.
Well, that connects back to our episode on habits too, because that is supported in that research as well, that it is better to do a diminished form of something that you're hoping to make progress in versus not doing it at all. So it's
Yes.
essential.
It is. And it gets the habit started, right, to your point. But it's also really good for time management, because if we can only check things off our list if we've done them perfectly, I mean, how many victories are we going to walk away with? And we need some victories in our lives. And the psychological research backs that up too. Often, if you're a manager and one of the folks you manage does something well, they're often rewarded for it. You praise them. They might be in line for promotion. They might even get money for it, right? We praise people who accomplish their goals at work. But when we accomplish our own goals and we're managing ourselves, we often don't reward ourselves. We often don't say, good job for getting that paper done, or excellent job for working out 5 days this week. We don't reward ourselves. Oftentimes we're like, yeah, that's the bare minimum. Good job, I guess. And that doesn't exactly fill our cup. And so I think we should reward ourselves more often.
I think this is related too to, from my entrepreneurial background, I know the joke that, a lot of times when you work for yourself, you replace another boss with an even meaner one. And I think as we talk about managing ourselves, what you just said is a good reminder to be nice to ourselves as well.
Yes. Treat ourselves with the grace that we hope other people would treat us with. And I think, I like to tell this story that when I was pregnant with my first child and I went to childbirth classes, I was living in Ithaca, New York, and I went to a mindful childbirth class. It was run by a lovely Buddhist woman who taught us all how to engage in childbirth in a mindful way, in line with mindfulness and meditation and being present in our lives. And we were all like gung-ho. We're like, yeah, we're going to mindful childbirth our way through life, right? We're doing it. We're super excited. And then we get towards the end and she said, but there's something very important that you need to learn. And at that point, we're bought in. It's been weeks. We're like, we're ready to go. And she said, don't hit yourself with the second dart. And we were like, what are you talking about? And she told us a story of if something's on your list and you don't get it. So in that case, if you have a specific image of what you want childbirth to look like and it doesn't happen for you, you already didn't achieve something. That already is not good in terms of the way you see the world. You didn't achieve something you wanted to. A goal was not met. Don't then hit yourself with a second blow dart and saying, well, now I'm horrible and I feel guilty about it, right? Move on. The thing wasn't accomplished. Move forward. Don't make yourself feel guilty about something just because the goal was not accomplished. And I have taken that to heart my entire life, which is, okay, I've fallen short of this thing that I wanted to do. It didn't get done, but I'm not going to beat myself up about it. I'm going to restructure. I'm going to reframe. I'm going to learn about myself, and I'm going to move forward. Part of that's, it's not about coddling yourself. It's about recognizing that you can't go back and change things. All you can do is move forward. But I always say that don't hit yourself with a second dart. Why are you beating yourself up over something that's over and done with? What are you going to do next time? Right? What are you going to do next time? Let's think forward instead of backwards. Let's not ruminate on things that have passed us by. And I think that's really important when we think about fulfilling our priorities and engaging in whatever you think balance might be for you, which is, if you have a day where you're like, this was the most imbalanced day in my entire life, right? Like, I haven't seen my family all day. I'm putting out fires. It's 10 o'clock at night. Nothing on my list got done. This was horrible. Well, then it's over. And tomorrow's a new day. And we don't beat ourselves up about it because it's over and there's nothing we can do. All we can do is learn for next time. And sometimes the lesson for next time is, well, I'm not making that to-do list ever again, because that's not going to happen. And sometimes it's, all right, how do I structure it so I'm not at work till 10 today? Again, how do I do that? And I think those are lessons I take with me for life, which is how to structure those priorities and move forward.
I'm Kira Ellerbrook. I am a student here at Tippie, as well as a producer on the podcast. I am a peer mentor for Story Lab as well. And today, because we're talking about learning strategies to better manage our energy and priorities, we've chosen Jack Cantorna's story, where Jack tells us of how discovering his cousin's last message to him showed him how he truly wants to live his life.
It was a beautiful summer morning, and I'm picking weeds in the front yard of my boss's house when my phone rings. It's my mom. I pick it up, and she's sobbing. From the first word that she said, my heart sinks. She said, "Jack, your cousin Logan is dead. He went into the jacuzzi during the middle of the night, had a seizure, and drowned. We're flying to Arizona tomorrow for the funeral." Logan was only 20, 1 year older than me, and I don't know about you and your cousins growing up, but me and him were bad news. We were either getting each other in trouble constantly or getting in trouble together constantly. Like the time, or every time we went to the supermarket, we would try our best to fit as many watermelons as we could into unsuspecting shoppers' shopping carts and not get caught. That was always a good time. Or the time that he wrote "Logan is here" on my uncle's wall in permanent marker, knowing that he would find it, go back to my aunt accused Logan of it, and he convinced her, my uncle, and the rest of my family that I had written it there as a scheme to get him in trouble. I was grounded for a month, and nobody believed me. It was a touche. Nice job. It was the day after the funeral, and I'm in Arizona. I'm washing my hands in the bathroom right next to his room, and I turn to leave, but something catches my eye, and I stop. It's a whiteboard, and on the whiteboard are words in his handwriting, and they say, "Action is the only way you change." This brings me back to only a month ago, the last time that I was in this house, the last time that I had seen my cousin. We were up to our usual shenanigans, no good. But I could see that he had changed since the last time that I had saw him. He wanted me to go on a run with him in the morning, and I did. And we went out into the Arizona heat. I think it was 100 degrees that weekend. And we went up and down a mountain, and it was grueling, my God. And he told me that he made that run every single day. And I was so impressed. And I was confused, too, a little bit, because who would, in their right mind, wants to do that every single day? What are you doing, man? And he told me that he had been working to transform himself, transform his life, and become who he wanted to be through action. And he was finding success. He was exercising every single day. He didn't drink. He didn't smoke. He was becoming who he wanted to be. And it was very powerful to see who he was now compared to the person that he had been, that I had known growing up. And so seeing this whiteboard, action is the only way you change, I honestly wanted to change many things about myself. I was addicted to nicotine. I was drinking too much. I was lazy in my studies and generally unfocused in my life. I did not want these things to define me. And Logan had given me a great gift. Through his, albeit tragic, death, he had given me the opportunity to be grateful for the time that I have here on this earth. Because if he died in the middle of the night in a goddamn jacuzzi, then I could die tomorrow in a car crash. I need to use my time well. And while he had been living purposefully, I had been just watching life slip by. So I had owed it to him to use my time well. And I decided to work to better myself. And it was up to me to pick up his torch. That's how I felt. So I go to school. It's the first semester of my sophomore year. And I didn't find any success initially. Nicotine and my addiction stopped me right in my tracks. I had no control. Whenever I wanted to focus on something that made me better, all these cravings and thoughts pulled me in wayward directions. It wasn't good. And I tried and I tried and I tried to quit again and again and again, and I failed again and again and again over that first semester. But I couldn't give up, because if I gave up, then I would be giving up on myself. But I also had proven that I couldn't do, and I did not have the strength to do what I needed to do. I felt lost. I had no clear path forward. I was desperate for a way out. So I did the only thing that I hadn't done. And I prayed. For the first time since I was a boy. Seriously. And mysteriously, so eerily, the moment that I let go of the struggle to find answers to all of my problems myself, the answer was given to me. This thought popped into my head. Commit yourself fully to what you know makes you better, and in time your struggles will become conquerable. And I clung to that. I got A's on my tests, A's on my papers, and that turned into A's in my classes. And I still struggled with nicotine. I still tried, and I still couldn't quite kick it, but I was getting better, and there was a new path forward. And as the months went on, I kept trying, and Lent came around. And Lent in the Christian tradition is where you sacrifice and give up something for 40 days. Last time I took Lent seriously was not once in my life, but this time I did. I quit nicotine once again, and I found success. For the first time in 5 years, I was addiction-free. I had retaken charge of my life. And it had started with my cousin's last message to me on that whiteboard. But my life didn't change there, although slowly it did. It only truly began to change when I sacrificed and severed ties with what I knew was holding me back. And now that I was free, I was able to become the person that I had always wanted to be. I called my sister up the other day. I told her that I had been having this weird feeling that he's still out there somewhere, and because I never saw his body, it just felt like he disappeared. How do you do that? There's a real person, and he just disappeared. I keep asking myself this question. Where did he go? And I could not stop asking it. And my sister said to me, she said, Jack, He's here right now in this conversation. Whenever we talk about him, we laugh about him, we cry about him. Whenever we remember him in any way, he lives on through the way that we remember him. And she's right. I don't ask myself that question anymore. I know where he is. Whenever I continue to walk the path of growth and hold his torch high, he walks with me. Thank you.
Let's go back to our guest one last time for a final tip E for you to remember in your work.
I think the biggest tippy that I would give folks as they're moving through their workday and thinking about how they achieve this elusive balance in their life and how they manage the things that are important to them is to grant yourself the grace that you would give the people that you love the most in your life. Allow yourself to grow and change, and allow yourself to move through the priorities in your life in a way that recognizes that those priorities are going to shift and change over the course of a week, a month, a year, a lifetime, and say, okay, how can I recognize my own growth and applaud myself when I'm able to accomplish the things off those lists? So grant yourself grace is what I would say.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Tippie Leads. Big thanks to Beth Livingston for the grounded conversation on balance, and to Jack Cantorna for sharing his story of loss and connecting with a new sense of balance. As always, thanks to Kira Ellerbrook for producing our Student Story segment, and to the Tippie Marketing Communication team for supporting the show. Next, we move from balance to broadening. Specifically, broadening your skill set. Professor Alexandra Nika joins us to explore why the most effective leaders cultivate interests and talents beyond their core work. You're not going to want to miss this engaging and surprising conversation. I'll see you there. This has been Tippie Leads, a podcast from the University of Iowa's Tippie College of Business. To learn more about our faculty guests, their research, and more, go to tippie.uiowa.edu/Tippie Leads. If you like this episode, share it with a friend or coworker. Or better yet, subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you like to get your podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. And if you're feeling generous, consider leaving us a rating or review to help others find the show. This is Nick Westergaard signing off. On behalf of everyone at Tippie, thanks for listening, and go Hawks!